On December 4th, 2025, we have a full moon happening at 13 degrees Gemini. And this is the last full moon of 2025. With the full 3536 channel activated, emotional energy that is vocalized will be prevalent. This full moon really promises a grand finale of Gate 36 for 2025. We have Saturn going to be staying in Gate 36 into January. But for 2025, this is going to wrap it up because we've seen a lot of it for the full year. Now, with a full channel active, it's like we're closing a chapter that Neptune opened on March 7th, 2022. So that was a long time ago. And if you look back in your life to the things that were happening back then, it might give you an indication of some of the things that Neptune was sort of dissolving and making way for something new. Because what we see with Gate 36 is this is an energy for new experiences. Neptune basically finished its journey through Gate 36 on February 9th, 2025. But the thing about Neptune is it's one of those places that we can look as much as we want to, but we absolutely can't see anything of exactly what was happening behind the scenes. And that's kind of what happens with Neptune. Ra Uru used to call Neptune the assassin. And basically it would come after Pluto or sort of worked in tandem with Pluto. So whatever Pluto transformed, disrupted, brought to the surface, Neptune would sort of finish the job, or vice versa. Neptune would go through a gate and then Pluto would come through and sort of finish the job and transform whatever it needed to. So they worked in tandem based on what Ra Uru said. So this is basically talking about Gate 36 and really about cycles too. Because if you look at Gate 36, it's called the rule of cycles. The rule of cycles in which decline is a natural but not enduring stage. Ultimately, when Saturn finishes a cycle on January 26, 2026, this will be when Gate 36 is not really going to be activated much anymore because, like I said, in 2025, Gate 36 was very, very active. So it's a big time, especially when we have our last full moon kind of bringing everything up to the surface and allowing us to see it and then allowing us to learn from it. We also have the activation of Gate 34, line 6, Common Sense by Venus. And it's kind of interesting because this is like a continuation of the new moon of November 5th, 2025, when Mercury was there. And it's interesting because when we look at Gate 34, line 6, this is called Common Sense. This is like, you know that you've won something. You know that whoever you're working against or pushing against or fighting, whatever you want to say, they don't have anything that they can sort of stand. They can't stand up to you. You have more power than them. And so there's two ways to do it. One is to continue to batter them, but the other way is to realize and have common sense that says that, yeah, I've sort of told them who I am. I've showed my power, and now it's time to sort of back off and let things be as they are. Now, if you don't back off, because ultimately everything is finite, energy is not infinite. If you continue to push when you've already made your point, you already won, this is where we have this concept of biting off more than you can chew. And we know what can happen when we do that. Now, Venus in here, in this energy, is bringing a different type of theme, whereas Mercury was talking about communication. So maybe there was a lot of communication that was like, who's the winner? And we could also even look at this from a like legacy media style of thing, where you have people pushing against, or government officials pushing against legacy media and saying, yeah, we do have the power. We saw a lot of this playing out in real world. With Venus here, this can be connected to Venetian themes like relationships, money, your career, and how you take care of yourself. Now, globally, this full moon could see leaders pushing the envelope and abusing their power because they can. And that's what we've seen. Leaders abusing their power, authoritarian energy, authoritarian leadership, and doing what they want to do because they can. And this might be sort of the culmination of that, where we see the biggest expressions of that in the collective. But again, it's always good to remember that there's a caveat with 34 line 6, and this is just going too far. And then you get to the point where you get pushback, because eventually, even if you have all the power, even if you can do whatever you want, everything has a limit. And especially when you look at Pluto and Gate 60, line 6, there is a limitation to everything. even though you can't see the limitation, it's still there. And this could be a reminder that the limitation is actually there, because remember, Pluto's in its last journey, last legs before it moves on into gate 41, where it will spend all of the time for the next couple of years until ultimately we hit 2027. Now, next year, Pluto is going to be moving right into gate 41, line 4. So we're going to have 4 different expressions of how that energy will play out. And I will do a video about that in the future. Now, when we look at the sun in gate 5, line 2 for this full moon, this talks about inner peace, or feeling comfortable sort of with the pauses in life. And I think it's a really nice end to the year where we're taking our time. We're deciding that the year happened. What do we learn? And again, when you look at the 3536 channel, there could be this expectation and trying to push the envelope and to manifest more experiences. But then on the other hand, you have the sun in gate 5, line 2, which is saying, okay, now it's time to pause. Now it's time to take a minute just to sort of take a breather, because life is not about one long race where you never have a break. It's about many different small races or many different walks. You know, you could say hit the ground running, or you could say hit the ground walking. It's all related to the things that will happen in life and the reason for why we're doing things and what is most appropriate for the time in our lives. And so we're looking at a cycle of ebbs and flows. And we also have the harmonic, which isn't playing out. It's not in this particular full moon energy. But having said that, whenever you have one gate, you can always have the expression of the harmonic, or sort of, you know, because they go hand in hand. And with gate 15, which is the harmonic to gate 5, we have this concept of going to the extreme because you're bored. So you jump into everything for a whim. And you could see how that would be the other side of, instead of saying, okay, this is where I am, let me just sort of reconfigure, or just like basically reflect on where I've been and where I want to go in the future, and take a moment to myself, just try and rush ahead and go to the next part of the journey. And this is where it can get too much. And sometimes we'll regret what we do, because again, with the 3536 channel in play, this is telling us, oh, let's go out for something more fun. Let's go out for a big experience. Let's end the year with a bang. But then when you have Saturn in gate 36, this is basically saying, you know, whatever you're jumping into, you're going to be held responsible for. If you're jumping into cycles and you haven't really thought about it, you're going to be held responsible. So globally, this might be a time of overreach and revelation, especially among leaders under pressure. Now, we have a lot of things happening in the collective. It's been building up all year where changes have been made, actions have been levied, and now it's sort of the culmination. Everything that's happened that leaders have made happen over the past year is sort of coming to fruition and is being shown. And, you know, you could say that people are going to be graded. Leaders will be graded based on what they did and didn't do. And especially with the nodes in 63 and 64, I mean, this is where you are grading, especially when it's in the third line, because the third line is the master of material. This is a material world. So you could say that this is, well, it's always going to be experimental, but it's also the embodiment of what it's like to live on planet Earth, and the embodiment of what that kind of energy looks like on Earth. And so you're looking at 63 line 3 is called continuance. In other words, you have some doubts and you think, yeah, okay, I can sit with that because I know at some point I'm going to get the energy or the answer that I need. Or alternatively, you're saying, I need an answer. I need any answer, and I'm just going to grab hold of it. And when you have 64 line 3, now remember, we have gate 63 is all about logic. It's all about strategy and patterns and making plans. Gate 64 is about living those plans. It's also about believing or not believing. It's about believing in a better tomorrow. Not based on what you see potentially, but if you think about working with gate 63 and gate 64 and they're together, you could say that believing that there's going to be a better tomorrow based on the pattern that has been offered to you, you could say, because these are in opposition and all oppositions work together. When you look at gate 64 line 3, this is called overextension, overconfidence that the fates will be kind on demand. So think about that. Again, this is magical thinking. This is magical thinking that says all will be great. So think about, we take the detriment of 63 line 3 and we put it with the detriment of 64 line 3. And so we have this feeling that the fates will just show up, and that means that things are just going to work on our favor whenever it suits us and whenever we feel it's right. And then we have 63 line 4 that says, I want my doubts completely gone yesterday. And so it's like, again, this is a wonderful ingredient for magical thinking, believing that all problems will be resolved and everything will go away. And we could also look at this as people who are out Christmas shopping or holiday shopping and thinking that, oh yeah, the money will just come, everything will happen and everything will work out. And I think that there's always, this perspective of positive thinking. We always want to have positive thinking. Like ultimately that is where we want to go. But when it gets to the point where it's positive thinking and it is almost like, well, I wish I could have a rocket ship to go to the moon tomorrow. What are the chances that that will happen? There's got to be some level of logic. It can't just all be magic. And magic is wonderful. And it does show up in our lives. But it doesn't always show up. And it doesn't show up on demand. And this is what the energy is basically telling us. With the Earth and Moon in detriment, and this is basically being bored. And just feeling like, oh, I just need something to make me feel good. And so it could be overspending on, an experience, a trip, or something that maybe is just not in the best interest of your budget for now. Biting off more than you can chew with Venus can also be biting off more than you can chew financially. Mercury in gate 43, line 5, reinforces the importance of collaboration. So if you look at the energy of individuality, and especially like the 4323, because that's half, gate 43 is half of the 4323 channel, we see this energy for all these bold ideas. And so gate 43 is where all these bold ideas come from. And then gate 23 is a metamorphic gate where all the ideas or concepts are simplified and brought into reality. And that's exactly what gate 23 is about. It is about simplicity. But with Mercury here in gate 43, line 5, it says new ideas are seeds that need the right soil. And always remember that gate 43, especially the 4323 channel, these are all energies that require other people in order for it to move forward to the next step. It's not something that just shows up and suddenly everything is perfect, because this is far-reaching energy or far-reaching ideas that not everybody has really caught up to. And that's usually the most frustrating part about having gate 43, 23, or the full channel, in that you feel like nobody really gets what your ideas are, but then a couple of years later, everybody's doing what you had proposed years before. And so it doesn't mean your idea is not good. It just means that the timing is not right. And that's the most important thing with Mercury. And this is about communication. It could be about new types of communication, new ways of moving your mutation out into the world via your voice or writing or something that is connected to some level of communication. Ultimately, the biggest takeaway from Mercury in gate 43, line 5 is the idea that the right allies will always amplify what you want. They'll be there to support you. They'll not only be there to support you, but they're also going to say, oh, what do you have to share? I know you have something that's important. I can just tell. And it's probably happened to a lot of us where, out of the blue, somebody will say, well, what do you think? And I just have this feeling that you have something important to say, and I don't know why, but I just, and I think that's kind of what we could always put the tag beside projected energy, which is 4323 is projected energy, is that it's like that feeling of people start to catch up with you, and suddenly the timing works. And literally, this is the kind of energy that when it works, it is like magic. It truly is like a magical thing that happens. Now, Mars is in gate 26, line 6, and this is bringing also, again, the lesson of timing, but not just that. It's also about authenticity. And because when you look at gate 26, line 6, this is the trickster. This is somebody who over-exaggerates. This is somebody who basically wants to make a sale, and they want to make a sale. And, a lot of times we'll say things that are the best. It's the best ever, and nobody's ever done it like this. This is sort of more of a global perspective, and it's quite interesting in that it does talk about the tribal energy, it's tribal willpower. It's also half of the 2644 channel, which is about it's about a win-win. It's about support of the tribe. But in this case, it's very interesting in that it's in the sixth line, and one of the expressions is the expression of the ego as a role whose influence is symbolic and lacks authority. So, in other words, what this is saying is that there are leaders that are losing their authority, and they're basically just talking, and less people are actually caring about what they have to say. And this is a yang type of leader, and this is where we see that the people are no longer interested in what this leader has to say. They have lost their ability and their authority, and this is also a paper tiger individual. They think that they still have all the power, but they have lost so much support that they haven't really got the memo yet that they have lost the support. And this is where they might be talking a big talk, making big exaggerated statements, especially about war or conflicts or anything like that. But once again, this is showing that this is a person who doesn't really have the authority, or even if they do have the authority, they're not willing to move forward. And they're basically trying to sell the people on something that they feel is a win. And that could be a conflict of some sort, or some sort of an aggressive moment or movement. And the people just don't care about it, nor will they buy it. So that is what I see for this new moon. And I hope you have a wonderful new moon ahead, and enjoy the pause and reflection and the walk to the end of the year, because we'll have lots to do when the new year starts again. Until next time, take care and bye for now.